Hi everyone. I wanted to run through where we're really at on the ground with AI. There's a lot of chatter and a lot of hype, but I wanted to run through where we are and basically just give you an overview to give you either confidence that you're on the right path or that you're moving in the right direction. So just to have a quick overview, we're going to go through where we really are, what the customers are actually saying, where the fears and risks are playing out. And we're going to go through like the future. I'll still go through why the 3 T's of AI is so important. We're going to go through and what the 3 A's of AI really is. So the ask and answer, the assistant to the agentic era, and what the future is going to look like and how you're going to play in it. So why listen to me? Basically, I've got over 55 live podcasts around AI. I host workshops and training sessions in AI with hackathons. And here's me speaking at a conference around AI for marketeers. So I asked 100 C-suite leaders where their company is on the AI journey. So I broke it down really simply. So just started, so right at the beginning, using some tools, automating, and then building agentic systems. Not surprisingly, most people are still using tools, and that's still where I think most people will be for until at least Q2, Q3 of this year. There's very, very few that are anywhere near full automation or agentic. So startups are the ones that are suggesting they're the furthest forward. COOs, interestingly, the job titles that say they're way into the future. But agentic is quite a way off, and we'll dive into why that is. But it's really important just to understand and ground this with a little bit of deeper knowledge and insights. Section AI, their research found from 5,000 knowledge workers, found that 26% of workers have no AI-related case at all in their work, and only 2% were like advanced. And something I'm seeing more and more is there's a lot of hype that goes on with AI, and there's very, very few companies that are really saying where they're really at away from podcasts, etc. So there's a real disparity. And if only 15% have reported and generated ROI from AI so far, it kind of gives you a use case and gives you confidence that you're not alone on that. So ChatGPT, they release what people are doing in work. They're really and truly really writing and using it for comms. They're learning and self-tutoring basically is what a lot of people's feedback is. And they're creating content. That's not something that many people have evolved past. That's still helping a lot of people, but still very much an individual level. And then we've got a home use case, which is price comparison, save me money, and customer service. And this is really interesting YouGov data because people are trusting it to act almost like an assistant, but not get anywhere near fulfilling the task for them. And very often, even when they have done the research, they'll check it's working themselves. So there is a long way to go there, but it's a promising use case for a lot of people, especially in Britain. So if we're going to go through the limitations, still key to understand that there are quite a few. So I say we've got 3 T's of AI, which is time, trust, and truth. It will save you time and energy, and it might help with talent and repointing talent, but there's still a trust issue. It still hallucinates. If you don't trust the answer and the platform, and you're putting private data on, there's still a real trust factor there that many companies aren't very confident with. And there's a truth element to it as well. So is the output truthful? Can we validate that really quickly? Can we verify it quickly enough so we can pass this information? What a lot of people aren't doing is they're not putting their own status or title on the line when they're going through this. So it's a really important area still. And then there's the 2V, so validate and verify. Validate is, can you validate the information? Can you validate the source? And if you can't validate it or don't validate it, what does that mean? So typically you shouldn't really move forward with that. And then on a verify perspective, can you verify it and you're happy enough to move forward and share that information as if it's your own? And if you can't, that verification shouldn't really happen. And just remember, when you're putting that information forward, you're not only putting the brand name behind it, but you're also putting your own. So something that's been overlooked a lot is AI really is a transformation and a technical shift. it's not as much an IT problem, it's a full service operational change. So what a lot of people aren't doing is they aren't applying operational rigor, and they're not really understanding the problems that need to be fixed. So what they're often doing is going off, finding a use case, using it, and it stops there. That's still some adoption, but that isn't really addressing any of the problems that most people are facing. And what many people are doing is they're taking it from a tool first perspective. And what that's actually doing is that's fine because there's use cases built in, but it's not multiplayer. So it's not influencing a wider part of the business. So the tech, the tools, the automation, they break frequently. And if you speak to anyone who's doing go-to-market engineering or AI engineering, they'll say that themselves, it's a real muscle that you have to build up and you have to constantly check on. So where are we really today? I still say we're in the crawl phase of the crawl, walk, run. We're getting to the point where Agentic has been talked around a lot. I'm a huge advocate around Agentic. However, we're really not there yet. And that's what a lot of people are also saying to me too. So, but over the last 12 months, there's been a lot of confused business leaders. So do we test the tools? Do we let people loose on them? Do the team all use different tools? Do we have to block it? And there's all these different elements that's happening as well around, can they use the data? Is there shadow AI happening? Are there people taking the data home and using tools at home when they're not allowed to in work? Do we go all in on it, or can we create a narrative that says we are when we're not? And is there AI FOMO that's actually happening? I think there's a lot of peer pressure from competitors in the market that are adding on AI features, but if that's not adding value, should you copy them? And that's something I think a lot of leaders are struggling with at the moment. So, but what many people forget is AI is already baked into the tools that we're using, and we're using a lot. So that's summarizing documents, that's reading long emails, that's giving us a catch up on Teams or Slack notifications. A lot of analysis is done already in Excel and Google Sheets, already baked into it. SEO's been using it for a long time, as has Google for their rankings. Social, there's a lot of content creation that's done via AI apps and done on, especially on mobile phones. There's obviously spell check and that from Grammarly. There's also a lot of video editing, audio editing that happens a lot. Personally, use it for Descript and for the AI Moment podcast. There's a lot on content summarization. Paid media's been having it for a long time. And I bet you if you speak to your product teams, they're using it to create prototypes, etc. And they're using it for product management and project management. And the developers are often using and becoming the editors of code through, Claude Code, etc. But as we've seen this weekend, Claude, through all of the issues they've had with the American government and the War Department, they actually hit the top ranking in the Google App Store in the US, which is completely unheard of when they were way down. And there's a huge movement moving away from ChatGPT into Claude. Anthropic have done a great job in this, but this also raises a few issues around switching costs. And will businesses be moving between different LLMs? And will they be moving quickly and trying to out different models? That's something for many businesses to really consider. And I know many IT teams are trying to lock that down currently. So here's a model that I use for the AI Moment podcast and use for a number of other different projects that I'm on at the moment. I call it the 1-to-6 model. It's automating the podcast, so the audio and the video, into blog posts, newsletters, social posts. So that's recording on Riverside or Descript. That's then creating social clips. That's using it to create the show notes and from the transcript. That's then to co-create a newsletter, which I then humanly edit at the end after a detailed prompt. Then can create a blog post on my blog or on a third-party site. And then there is Gemini, which you can create and use to create posts on LinkedIn, X, Substack, etc. So there's a huge array of content for one transcript or one audio file. And then I could make a meme as well, which I have done in the past. So that's just gives you an excitable way to use an existing way to use AI in what you're doing. But something you need to really consider is most companies are focusing on tools, but not the problems, as I said earlier on. So often it's what tools should we use? Should we use what type of LLM should be used? Should it be ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini? We've been given Copilot. What do we do, or what can we do with it? And we need a tool to do X. But what people aren't doing is they're not really thinking about scaling it. So are we struggling with analysis? How can we scale this effectively? Our product roadmap's pretty jammed and locked down till Q3. How can we use this to prototype? How can we use, Lovable or Cursor or one of those to create, campaign hub and home? And is there something we can do to replace our Google sheet that constantly breaks? People forget that they've got access. Can we build something that's a little bit more scalable and more owned within the company? These are sort of the problems that many should be trying to fix. And by listing out all of the problems that you're encountering, gives you a real way of how to tackle it and how to break down your use of AI. So what a lot of people were doing is they were using Google's App Studio to create their own tools. I obviously did that with an ad mockup. You can go in, you can create an ad and show it in different environments. So Piccadilly Circus, you can do it on the Sphere in Las Vegas, you can do it in a newspaper or a billboard. That's a typical use case which other people used to struggle with. Now I've also got an AI keyword tool that helps me create content or look at where we should potentially create AI moment podcasts as well. So there is an actual fight that's happening at the moment, and not many people are really talking around it. And it's where we're moving from search to answers to an AI engine. And what we've seen recently is Google's real shift to Gemini. And what that's enabled them to do is reduce the risk around ads, but then bake in a much better and much more customer-focused approach. And what we've seen is Perplexity did have some good use cases, but they're in the middle where they're answer engines, so there isn't real reasons to go deeper into their stack or use it as a recurring tool. We're seeing, with Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, even to a point with Copilot, we're seeing real sticky use cases in that. Meta AI has been used a lot across their profiles and their portfolio. And that's something that I think many people have overlooked and forgotten, is the importance of these sorts of LLMs and these AI engines that are going to be doing a lot more for us, as opposed to just giving us a link dump of 7 to 10 links. So I say that we're in 3 phases of AI, and I've used 3A. So it's ask and answer, which we're very much in today. That's where Joe Blogs is really at. We've got the assistant era, which is ask for research, ask for help, ask for recommendations. That's where some of us have moved towards. And there's Agentic, which many people feel like is the future. There's only a tiny percent of people that are really getting there. And there's a whole lot of security aspects and risks there, which many companies haven't really considered yet. But saying that, when we're in 3 phases of AI adoption, phase 1 really is where most people are. And I think that's what's going to put most people's mind at ease. So we've got the use AI tools, then potentially test different LLMs. What most people aren't then doing is identifying the problems and then getting coaching on it. So they're not really identifying and then building around that. So when you're coaching a team, whether that's a workshop, that's dedicated training, lunch and learns, etc., if you don't move down towards a hackathon and optimize those problems, so you're actually fixing it and then trying to build solutions for it, that's where many are struggling. And phase 3, which a lot of people aren't in yet, is the semi-automation and automation phase. And that's where I think a lot of companies are going to be aiming to get to by the end of this year. Most people away from performance marketing and some of the development won't get to semi-automation because they don't have the foundation set and they're not prepared to invest in their coaching and the training, which I highly recommend. But SimilarWeb have really analysed and looked through this in one of their marketing panels, and they've seen AI really outperform where their expectations are really. So they've seen that search is typical search, traditional search, and search engines are lagging way behind. And that's where we expect it to be. And there's many people that believe Google are trying to slowly shift people across to Gemini and a more deeply integrated AI approach. But while we're doing that, we're also in a transitional period around user journeys, and that's all changing, and that's going to impact a lot of businesses. So a traditional journey might be you make a search, you click on an answer, you browse around, you get some comparison, price comparison or brands that you might compare, and then you might then go to purchase, and that's often a really long process. in some high-end and high-value flows, that could be 12 repeat different searches, etc. Where we're moving to with the assist section is we ask the AI a question, we get a list of recommendations coming back to us. Some of us will then go and verify that information. Then we might make a purchase and might go and visit that, those restaurants or those cafes in our local area. And then there's the fully agentic, which isn't really happening. You set your preferences, your agent does the research, it compares, it negotiates, it applies a discount code or the one it's negotiated for you, and it completes the checkout in one foul swoop. So wherever there's an action item there's something for you to take on. And I think what most people haven't done is they haven't mapped out their user journeys and haven't really considered how it's going to be disrupted. So when you're thinking around building for the agentic future, many people are going to see this as a high cost up front. But what that means is when people have long sales cycle and sales teams, they don't feel like that's going to be replaced, where some really smart companies have already replaced that. So it's something for you to consider doing moving forward. And then there's a real battle for more access to what AI can do on your machines, on your laptops, on your phones. So on the browser, you can go to chat.com, which is ChatGPT, or you can use browser extensions. You have mobile apps and desktop apps, and most specifically, mobile apps are the ones that are your connector between meetings or the connector on the way home, etc. And then you've got things like their own browser. So Dia's one that Atlassian bought. Perplexity have got Comment, which is a good browser built on top of Chrome. And then there's the desktop apps. And above that, between the iOS and the browser level, there's things like OpenClaw. And that's rightly scaring a lot of IT teams and rewriting IT policies as we speak. So unless you have a manifesto, not a dedicated AI manifesto, what's important here is to be able to play safely and to be helped really quickly, really safely in a safe environment. So my recommendation is you use voice on the apps when you're want to start research or you're on the way between meetings, and then you can take over in the web browser. And these are all ways for the AI companies to ensure that they're sticky. Something that I think most people have overlooked is AEO, GEO, AIO, etc. It really is a new marketing channel. And can we re-engineer how marketing adopts AI into answering questions? Because everyone prompts very differently. You'll see this when you ask people how they prompted it or what did they prompt. And this is just an example of ChatGPT now answers a number of the questions. So how are you going to adopt to this new AEO approach when someone's asking really, really specific questions, as opposed to just a brand search or brand plus product search in SEO? This is why I'm emphasizing and recommend AEO as a completely new channel. And then ChatGPT ads have landed. They're expensive. They're based on cost per 1,000 impressions. And it's only really designed for these big brands that can really understand how to be attached to that space. So this is just the example that Expedia have put up recently. This is something to keep and bear in mind and keep looking through. But with all of the negativity coming around assistance and agentic that's coming out, Walmart has said their AI shopping agent increased the value tremendously. Amazon said Rufus is when it was an assisted AI session, captured far more purchases and drove 66% of searches. And this is something we're going to see over and over again. So a tip for you today and what to build is what many companies haven't done is built a context doc. And what that is it's a centralized space. It's a living, breathing document where you and your teams can upload this document, and it can be the canonical source of information for your company. And many, many people haven't done that. And you should assign a person or a duo to update this and share this with everyone when it's updated. Because without this, you're constantly prompting and re-prompting and prompting again. And all that's doing is losing you time. Whereas if everyone has the same document, you'll all have very similar outputs. And if you don't have it in place, I would suggest starting it today. You should give it your ICPs, your style guides, how your products want to show up, what your brand does and doesn't do, what place in the market are you high end, are you luxury, or actually are you a discount brand? And these are all ways to help LLMs get the best outputs for you. And smart people are using it for many different ways, but this is Hannah Fry. She's got a great series on the BBC at the moment, and what she's doing is asking it to say what she's missed, or is there any biases, or tell me the hard stuff, give me the things that I might have missed, or I could have overlooked. And I think this is just some ways and inspiration for many people to take on board. And as I was saying earlier, OpenClaw and all these cool tools that you're seeing people fully automate things on, there are much bigger problems with these tools than are just using things off the web browser and uploading some dummy data. So this is an example from the head of safety and security at Meta, and it essentially deleted all the emails from the inbox. And this is something many, many people are seeing. It's already hacked crypto wallets. So these are all ways to be concerned and really think about the future. And here's an example of what I did in Q4 of last year. We ran a Future of Marketing report. It was with 130 CMOs. And essentially what I did was there was a huge amount of free-form analysis that came back that I had to do. So I took all the survey results, put it into Google Sheets. I ran Gemini in Google Sheets to pull out the most interesting information and answered. It created the graphs, highlighted information in trends. So that got me way ahead of having to do a lot of manual analysis. In Dia, which was the browser I used at the time, I asked it what was I missing, was there any information that could have been discounted or should be invalidated. And then I got it to, and it flagged 3 really important data points, which I missed manually. And they were really critical to the success of the report. So it pulled the trends, we pulled it through, asked Gemini to write the top 25 takeaways, went through and edited it as a human in the loop. Then I asked just Gemini and Dia just to go over it and make sure there's nothing critically missed or any biases there. And then my co-creator of Marketing Unfiltered created a newsletter all generated on that. What would have taken me, 4 to 6 hours work, this was really done within an hour. So this is just one use case that you could do yourself. And then another thing that I think a lot of people aren't necessarily considering, and something to go away and think around, is, are you putting the experts in front of the right people? Because before, when you used to just let the CEO or co-founder or official spokespeople, what you're then doing is you're capping your audience and you're not actually getting the experts out in front of their audience to talk about what you're doing and how you're doing it. And this is something that AI companies have done tremendously well. So more video walkthroughs, more product walkthroughs, more screen records. There's far more podcasts that they can go on. There's far more articulation that they can have. And they're going to have much better reach and marketing capabilities than a lot of your marketing team does. As a former CMO, CGO, that's something that could be hard to hear, but I think this is where we are in the modern day. So where we're going to go to next, our current journey, we're in 4 states. Right at the top, we're in the educate state. Then we've got want state, need state, and then action state. We want to be educated about something. We might then go through and say we want a product. It isn't then until it's unlocked that we say we actually really need it. And there's a lot of things that happen. It could be minutes or moments to months until we take that action state. What we're actually finding, and we're going to find more and more with Agentic, is agentic translations and transactions that are going to happen. And what that means is it's going to go off, check reviews, find products, do shortlists, make really conscious decisions, then transact within, that could be within a few minutes. That doesn't mean that something's going to take them months and months anymore. You can have high confidence to complete that within, minutes. But something a lot of us haven't necessarily thought of is, are we going to be a partner or an API in a lot of the future way of how AI is going to work? So you've got self-driving cars with Waymo, and it's coming to London. They operate on LLMs and SLMs, so small language models on the car. There's robots. We've seen a lot of the memes and a lot of demos that are coming out, but they're coming to a kitchen and to workplaces very soon. We then got a lot of assistants in the wearables. So whether they're fashion, there could be earrings or wristwatches or, glasses that are coming out. Meta glasses and Snap have been leading the way on that. There's obviously some concerns around Meta, but there are going to be huge amounts of ways where not just AI on your computer or your iPhone. There's going to be AI powered everything in the future. And we're already seeing this in tools and toys. So be very mindful of in the toys aspect. And then Google have shown their hand slightly is how they're going to protect their advertising revenue. Is they've got a patent that's about creating content pages, so very specific tailored content to a very specific user, and it's going to help them create content on the fly to make sure that you transact and finish that transaction. And that's something that I'd be very, very mindful of. And then just something to bear in mind is what we're doing at the moment is on our phones we get notification fatigue. We used to have dopamine kicks. Now we're trying to do everything we can to dismiss it. In the very near future, we're going to have agents that are going to stop these different notifications coming in, and they're going to block it, or they're going to say, actually, what you really need to do is reply to this because it's really important. Whereas this WhatsApp message isn't, and this email can be deprioritized. And what we're probably going to see is very similar happen within work and within work chats as well. And what we're going to see is a lot of this busy work will be reduced down too. So I highly recommend that you read the Stripe 5 Levels of Agentic Commerce. This is really, really well packaged together. I highly recommend it. But something to consider in the future is when we're not just advertising to humans, we're going to be advertising to our agents. And are we actually going to let this happen? Because an agent's not going to want to waste tokens or resource on advertising. So this is just an example of Aisha's buyer journey existing. She goes on, she asks in many different places, she does many different searches and then searches for a discount and then has to go through a procurement or compliance check. What I would highly recommend you doing is mapping this out, but then including where Agentic is going to come in. Because essentially what it's going to be doing is removing a lot of this emphasis around what you really need and what you're going to be delivering on. So have a look through this. I've got an exercise for you to complete too. And then, as I said earlier on, AEO is going to be a new channel. So how are you going to connect this? So I'd really rethink what the skills are going to be needed and how you're going to blend this across your teams. So here's an exercise that I think you should do. This is one that I did in October, was mapped out a complete marketing department and how it's going to reshape it. So when you're powered by AI, map out all the different channels and all the different skill sets and the teams that you have. And then the broader it goes out, the more different channels that you've got that are going to be assisted or using, and limit access and really see how that's going to reshape your team or efforts. And here's an exercise for you to do too. And this is just an exercise that I did where Agentic is going to replace a lot of these teams. And here is an overview of how I think you can really look at org design. So this is what we used to be, where we kind of are today with teams and agents and tools, and then where we're going to get to. So we're going to get teams of people and agents, or we're going to have a centralized human team with agents that go off and take action, pull different resources and do different activities. So with all that said, I've got 6 steps for you to take forward when you're working with AI. Is build out a dedicated, detailed problems list, the problems you're facing, you're about to face, and then how are you going to try and tackle that with AI. Run an internal AI workshop, hire an external facilitator like me that can add some weight to it, bring the different departments together, and then help you go across. You need to budget and invest into this, and this is the right tools. There's not a one-size-fits-all tool out there, and I don't think there ever will be. But you need those list of problems to create the tools which we're going to trial and then roll out. I would then go deeper with a hackathon that should be company-wide. Obviously, if you're a huge company, you shouldn't do that, but this is something I highly, highly recommend. And I recommend that you build 2 to 3 different solutions that are mid-effort, mid-reward, because they're often discounted in scaling when you scale your work. And this is a way to get this done. You can do it in the morning or afternoon now because it's a way you can prototype really quickly. And then just lastly, run check-ins with on AI, create an AI roadmap, assign a captain and champion, and then get them to train other people. So that was a lot to get through in 30 minutes, but here are ways that you can get in contact with me, and you can also download that. So drop me an email, book a slot, connect with me on LinkedIn. Thank you very much.